Welcome to topic 1.5, ratification of the Constitution. So the Constitutional Convention in Philly took place in 1787, and this is where the Constitution was born and established a stronger federal government. And from the convention came 5 compromises. The first one is the Great Connecticut Compromise. You'll see it written as both of those names. This was where large states supported the Virginia Plan, which advocated for representation based on population, and smaller states supported the New Jersey Plan, which advocated for equal representation for states regardless of their population size. So the solution they agreed on was a bicameral Congress, which we have today, the 2 chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Reps would be based on population and it favors larger states. The Senate has 2 senators per state and it favors small states. Does not matter your population size, each state only gets 2 senators. The second compromise was the Electoral College. So the framers were worried about having a direct popular vote in the election process for the president. So the solution was to have each state have electors that would be the equal number to their representatives and senators. So states choose their electors, and each presidential candidate needs to reach 270 votes, a majority, to win the presidency. If for whatever reason neither presidential candidate reaches 270 votes, then per the 12th Amendment, the House of Representatives steps in and they vote according to the top 3 candidates with the most electoral votes. The third compromise was the Three-Fifths Compromise. So southern states wanted enslaved people to count for representation in the House, while the northern states did not because they saw no need for it since enslaved people couldn't vote. So the solution was that enslaved people would count for 3/5 of a person for representation and tax purposes. This actually increased Southern representation and power in both the House and the Electoral College. The fourth compromise was on the slave trade. So Congress, they wrote in the Constitution that, the framers wrote that Congress could not ban the importation of enslaved people until 1808. They just randomly picked that year. So what that meant was they were putting it off until 1808. They did not make a decision. So by putting it off until 1808, it protected Southern economic interests for 20 years, and it started laying the foundation and building that regional tension that we see explode into the Civil War. So it really just favored the Southern states and their economic interests and made them more of a powerhouse in the House. And the last compromise is the Bill of Rights. So many states feared that the Constitution would not protect individual liberties. That was the main argument that the Anti-Federalists wanted the Bill of Rights for. So the Federalists and Anti-Federalists reached a compromise that led to the Bill of Rights, which is how we have the first 10 amendments. And I pointed out here Article 5, that established the amendment process. And from there, we have 2 amendments for proposing amendments to the Constitution and then 2 methods for ratifying. So it's a pretty tedious process, so hence why constitutional change is pretty rare. So issues left resolved in Philly. So they did talk about the Three-Fifths Compromise and the slave trade, but all that did was strengthen slaveholding states, and they didn't really talk about what would happen when the year 1808 came around. So that issue essentially boiled into the Civil War, and it strengthened up the power of the Southern slaveholding states. And that was later addressed by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which we refer to as the Reconstruction Amendments. And national versus state power, that even goes back to when they saw the Articles of Confederation needed to be changed. And that's a debate that we continue to see today. Here are the key takeaways for 1.5, and I will see you next time for 1.6.